My hope is to beat this and be the person that I used to be before. The mom, the fiance, hopefully by then the wife. My hope is to have my normal life again. I was born in Mexico, and my parents brought me and my siblings here to the States when we were little. And so I just remember coming here, learning a new language. It was just really hard. Really hard. Growing up through the not having my parents around most of the time, putting through a lot of hard situations kind of built that character in me to be strong and stubborn and hardly ever cry. You know, it's just like, okay, just get done with that. You'll be good. So growing up, it was like, okay, I have to always, you know, with school and work, always bringing my all and just shine. I was a teenage mom. I had my daughter when I was 15. But I still went to high school and graduated from high school within 3 years instead of 4. Took a lot of credit by exams, and I also had a job at the same time. So I was taking care of my newborn baby. I was going to school, trying to graduate from high school. And I had a job, and then I had my husband at the time, and then my family and everybody. I had a lot of dreams, a lot of things. I wanted to become an attorney, but with me having a daughter at a very young age, it kind of kept me from doing a lot of things because I was too busy taking care of her and taking care of the house. And then my ex-husband decided to join the military, and it became about his career, not mine. And that's where I got in banking. With all the moving and everything that we did, it was easier for me to get a job at a bank. And so got hired at a bank, had no experience with banking whatsoever, and then from there it just took off.
One of my high school friends had come to see me. My birthday was the next day, and so she had come to say happy birthday, and Maria was with her.
My friend from work, she asked me if I could go with her to the fair, and I said, yeah, sure. So while there, she's like, hey, I want you to meet someone. And there he is, standing with his big smile.
The second I saw Maria, I fell in love with her.
When he came home, he said, I met the most amazing girl, he said. So he said, I'd like to, try and develop a relationship with her.
A couple weeks later, we went out and had breakfast, and for about 8 months, we just started hanging out and getting to be friends.
We just kind of started hanging out. We saw a lot of things in common. He was also going through a divorce, 2 kids, same situation as me. And so we just kind of, I don't know, we did a lot of things together. We would go out with the kids together and do things.
As the months went by, they saw more and more of each other. I really enjoyed her, and she has a wonderful personality.
When all the kids would get together, they would just play, and they would get along amazing.
We were in a swimming pool in Phoenix, and Giovanni at the time, she was only, I guess she was like 4 years old, and I'll never forget her saying, it feels so good to feel like a family.
First, when I saw them together, and my daughter got along with Giovanni, and the way that Adriel would just play with Cameron, and the bond that they had together, they still have. It was amazing. So it made it so much easier for me to stay. I'm like, okay, we're set.
And so one night she was here in Cruces, and we went out to dinner and kind of went out dancing and stuff. And I figured she's moving to Texas, I have nothing to lose, so I kissed her one night, and it kind of changed everything. Everything just changed after that night.
And from there it just started. We So we had a lot of things in common, and I fell in love. I finally saw a life where I could have a stable family, because I didn't have that before. My ex somewhere else, going through a lot of problems. I was in a different state with my son and my daughter, raising them alone, and then coming here and being with them. I'm like, okay, finally, it's a stable home. He's not going anywhere. He's staying here with me. He's helping me raise the kids.
So it was quite a romance, and I grew to like her like a daughter immediately.
It was amazing. It's still amazing because he's still like that with them. He's very attentive. And he's very loving. He's a very loving. He has such a good heart. Always willing to be there for them. For all four of them. He's very, he dedicates his life to the kids and me. He never thinks about himself.
And I mean, to me, marriage is very sacred. Maria had shown me a love that I had never experienced in my life. So I had learned, in the Bible, that the Bible teaches you that being betrothed to somebody is just as much of a commitment as being married to them. So I was trying to uphold that commitment. Even though we weren't married, we still had loved each other enough to get engaged. So I was learning what unconditional love was. Everything fell into place. So she moved out of her apartment, she moved in here. That was summer of 17. Things were just going amazingly well. Kids were all getting along. So in November of 17 is when I proposed to her. And that's when we got engaged.
It started a lot of bleeding and a lot of weird symptoms.
With her starting to bleed, of course I didn't know anything about stuff like that. And she, back in 2017, she started really complaining about her periods lasting long times and not going away. And she was always extremely tired. She would have to take naps and but I just figured, she's a hardworking mom and she's got a lot on her plate and very exhausting.
My first impression with Ed is he was very, he was personal. He was like, hey, how did everything go at work? How are you doing? Things like that. So it felt like he was not just my physician or a professional. I felt like, I had some sort of relationship with him. I went there like a lot to see what was going on with my situation, and I felt like I could trust him.
She would always say that she really liked her doctor and she felt very comfortable with him and it was convenient to her work, and but as time progressed, I was starting to get more and more frustrated because the bleeding kept getting worse, but nothing they were doing was helping.
People ask me, well, why did you keep going there if there was no solution? Because I trusted. I trusted what he had for my plans to get my hormones taken care of or my bleeding under control. I'm like, no, I can't give up now. In a way, because I felt like, I'm like, what is he gonna think? Like he's not good enough or what? I'm like, but I trust him. He's good. Something that Kevin would always tell me. You should go see someone else or something. I'm like, no, he's got it. He's good. He's telling me that this is what I gotta do. Let's wait for this time around and see what happens. We'll be fine. I trusted him.
She would come home with a new birth control prescription, or it would be changed, and she just kind of was trusting that she would take this new birth control, and she had to give it time to take effect and to start making changes and to take care of it, but it just didn't. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Because I kept going for the same thing over and over again. And I felt like, okay, well, he's telling me I gotta do this or take these pills or follow what he's telling me, but I feel like it was getting nowhere.
So, and after, I don't know, it was like a little over a year of the birth control pills, and then that's when they finally gave her the depot shot, and that just did not go over well. She just became very angry all the time, and I had never seen that side of her, and I literally saw it right after that shot, and I kept bringing it up, and she didn't see it, she didn't realize it, she didn't feel it, and I talked to a couple of other females that I had known that, and they had had experiences with that shot, and I was getting the same feedback that yes, that's what it does. So when I went to the appointment with her, and I brought it up to Ediz, he told me that there was no side effects to that shot. He told me that it was just happens to be coincidence, but that shot doesn't have side effects. But I was trying to be very insistent that yes, I don't know who this girl is anymore. We went from having this loving, happy home to our house kind of became a war zone at some points, just because it's almost as if she didn't even have control of herself anymore. And eventually when we got to our oncologist in Albuquerque, she's the one that shed a little bit more light, and she said that Depo-Provera shot basically puts her into menopause. So when she got that shot, it kicked her into menopause at 29 years old.
No, I was not expecting it. I thought it was something else, maybe, I don't know, a cyst or something, not something big like that.
Dr. Colson had just told us the test results came positive for cancer. She wanted us to be in Albuquerque the following week, and so they scheduled it, and that's when Dr. Finkelstein was able to, just by feeling, to tell that she was at stage 1B1 already at that point. And that was the end of June, and Dr. Finkelstein felt that she needed to have a full radical hysterectomy, and so that was scheduled for July 25th of 18. She had the full radical hysterectomy. She kept telling the nurse that, because the surgery was on a Wednesday, I believe, and they were releasing her on Thursday, and on Thursday she just wasn't comfortable. She didn't want to go home. She kept telling the nurses that something doesn't feel right. And they just kept telling her, well, it's part of the surgery. This is one of the after effects. And so we drove home on Thursday, and I was just kind of taking care of her. And Sunday morning, she just woke up just screaming bloody murder. And so I turned on the light, and I'll never forget, turning on the light, and her stomach was just so swollen. And so I took her temperature, and she had a fever, and so I took her to the emergency room, and right away they started putting tubes down her nose and started sucking out stuff out of her stomach, and they were calling for CAT scans. The CAT scans were coming out blurry. They couldn't tell what was going on, but she was in a lot of pain and just looked like she was fading in and out. And so they started talking to the doctors in Albuquerque, and they wanted her in Albuquerque right away. So next thing I know, they're making arrangements for an air vac, and they're calling for a helicopter, and she's just completely out of it and just pumping this green stuff out of her stomach, just filling up containers of it. And they tried to do CAT scans there in Albuquerque, and those were coming out blurry too. So the surgeons and the charge nurse came and talked to me and said they can't figure out what's going on. They need to do an emergency exploratory surgery. And so I gave consent for it, and so that Monday morning they took her in right away, and they opened her up, and apparently she had picked up 3 different bacteria in the hospital during the full radical hysterectomy, and she just had her whole inside cavity was covered in abscess. they were able to clean her out, but they had to leave her open. But they were even thinking they might have to remove some parts in there, and they just didn't know what they were going to find. So they had her in quarantine, and they basically gave me the option, look, we can either quarantine you with her, or you can't come in and out of her room. You're going to have to stay outside. So of course I wanted to be there with her, so I opted to be quarantined with her. So I stayed in the room there, and the nurses brought me a bed, and they would bring me stuff to eat. So she was really struggling. She was just so hot. I was constantly having to call for ice and filling them up with tubs of water and getting her washcloths. And I would cover her in wet ice washcloths because she was just burning up so much, and the pain was just so bad. Nothing they seemed to give her would help. She was just in so much pain. I just remember my heart would break because, I mean, the woman that I love so much is in here in so much pain, and I can't do anything about it. She came home with a PICC line. They taught me in Albuquerque how to remove the caps, flush her lines, run the antibiotics, and it would take about 30 to 45 minutes to run the antibiotic. And so she had to have meds every 2 hours, and once it was done, I would have to go in and flush her ports and keep them clean, because that port went directly to her heart. So they made it very, very clear that if I was going to be the one responsible, that I had to be super clean and keep these ports flushed and everything, because any infection, anything would go straight to her heart. I knew Maria couldn't afford to have anything contaminate her or anything, so I was constantly cleaning the house and making sure everything was disinfected, and anybody that came into the house was having to wash their hands. After seeing what she had gone through, I did not want to see. I wanted to get her through it, but I never wanted to see her go through that again. So my alarm would literally go off every 2 hours, day and night. I started learning, doctors were asking certain questions, so I even had to know how much she ate, what time she ate. So I just started keeping notebooks, and I would basically do whatever I needed for her, give her whatever she needed, and then I would come and I kept a little journal there on the counter, and I had all her meds lined up there because they had to be at different times. And then, she came home with a catheter. So she had a catheter, I believe it was for a week or two, and I would have to log how much urine she was putting out and everything. If you would have told me before that I needed to do that, or I was going to have to do that, it would have probably grossed me out quite a bit. But when we were in that situation, it's just what I had to do. I didn't think about it.
He was always there, and so I saw him grow into a wonderful caretaker, which I had never seen him do.
Finally, as of December, she was cleared as far as the infection, the cancer. They said she was in remission. She was still suffering and dealing with it emotionally and mentally, and really going through some issues on her own because of everything she had been through. But I'll never forget, I believe it was a Wednesday night. I think it was like January 3rd or somewhere in there. That night, she finally came out of her depression. I finally had my Maria back. And after that night, our relationship had grown closer than it was even before the whole cancer. She started planning our wedding again and everything, because that's what had happened. We had gotten engaged November of 2017, but we were dealing with the different moods of the pills and then that shot, and it just kind of threw everything on the back burner and on hold. And then, of course, being diagnosed with cancer, neither of us were thinking about wedding plans or anything. But after she came out of that depression in January, she was just so happy and excited and planning. She wanted to get married in June. So June of 2019 is when we were supposed to have gotten married. and everything was just going great. I mean, she was better than even before. Um, and then that second week of February is when they found out the cancer was back, and she fell back again. Just the depression and I think after seeing what she went through the first time, she kind of had an idea of what she was going to have to go through again, but she still hadn't experienced radiation and chemo. And so this time they went and they wanted to do radiation and chemo, and that was a whole nother world than the surgery. So I don't remember if it was a week or two into the radiation when it started burning her. I'll never forget one night I could hear her screaming in the shower, and so I ran to the back bedroom and I go back there, and all in her area right here, it just looked like somebody had held a blowtorch up to her. Her skin was just black, and just from the water touching her, her skin was just falling off and peeling, and I guess it was just on fire. So it got to the point where they had to give her about a week and a half off of radiation, just because it was burning her so bad, and they needed to give her body a break on that. And then the chemo, normally she was going to work the day after chemo, and then a couple of weeks into it, she would start having to miss the day after chemo. And then by the last 5-6 weeks, she was missing like 3 and 4 days of work, if not more, after chemo, because it was just wiping her out.
I don't know. A lot of it is a blank, actually. I don't remember a whole lot.
It's called chemo brain. You know, the chemo not only kills the cancer, but it kills brain cells and has other effects on the body. And I see it more and more as time has progressed. It's literally affected her memory so much sometimes. She doesn't remember what we did the night before. So that's been really difficult. During the summer, she did have to have one more surgery. Apparently, in one of the scans, they had seen that the ureter between the bladder and the kidney had a kink in it. And so what they think is as a result of the radiation caused scar tissue to start forming and causing a kink in that ureter tube. So they had to go in and do an emergency stent. So we got through all of that. We got another PET scan done in June of 19, and everything was clear. The tumor was still there, but it had shrunk, but there was no live active cancer cells showing up. In September, that's when the PET scan lit up again, and we found out the cancer was back again. And I think that's when it really hit her. I think at that point, she had been through the surgeries, she had been through radiation, through chemo. She thought the surgery was just the end of the world after going through that, and then having to experience chemo and radiation. That's when she just really had a complete meltdown and really took it hard. So one of the biggest reasons we were referred to MD Anderson is they were talking to Dr. Finkelstein about a procedure called a total pelvic exoneration. So right now we're in the process of, the PET scans say one thing, but they're trying to find out if where it's lighting up is actually truly cancer. So that's why they want to go ahead and do the biopsies to test it, to see what route they can, if that surgery is an option.
They're talking about doing this surgery called total pelvic exoneration, where they remove my vagina, my bladder, my rectum, everything.
And that surgery just completely, I've never seen it scare her like this before. I've never seen anything like this before with her. Her having massive meltdowns and just panic attacks. I've never seen Maria have a panic attack before. And to see that now, it's really hard.
It's barbaric. The USB, it's barbaric. I've seen the pictures. Barbaric, morbid, it's horrific. It's another thing that keeps me from saying, okay, let's get married, because in my eyes, I'm like, what man is gonna want to be with a woman that doesn't have that? And I know he loves me, but if he's giving that sacrifice, like, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. It's a really tough decision for me. They talked about doing another, like a clinical trial. It's not even been approved by the FDA. And I was feeling so hopeful and just so excited. I'm like, okay, you know what, this clinical trial, this is gonna do it, this is gonna be it. And now they're like, oh, guess what? Well, we gotta make sure that it really has spread. Gotta go back to MD Anderson, run more tests. So for right now, this surgery that I talked about being off the table, it's back on the table. When I was in Houston, and we just came out of the doctor's office, and they're talking about the surgery and everything. And I video called my mom. She lives in Mexico. And what is it for her? Like, it's her and my other sister, and they're like, you got this, you're good, you'll be fine, you're gonna get through it. And I just flipped. I flipped out. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be okay. I'm not. See, like before, that would have not been my reaction. I would have agreed with them. I would have said, yeah, you know what, you're right, I'll be okay. It'll be fine. This time I'm feeling myself like just angry at everything. And it was just so hard because I have never yelled at my mom like that. And she just cried. And she's like, Mika, what else do you want me to tell you?
But I try not to let her know that I'm worried or think about that, because I feel like she's got enough on her plate, and so I try to be as pleasant as I can. But it's hard sometimes.
I had so much hope and faith, and now that faith has, like, I feel like I don't have that strength in me anymore. Like, I'm not strong enough. Like, I can't beat this. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened to the strong Maria that everybody talks about? The strong character and this and that. Where is she? And I feel like I don't have control of me. What happens with my health, with it, everything in me. I feel like it's just all slipping away. I don't have that control like I used to. I don't know.
The thoughts in the back of my head that this could take her life, but I try and stay positive. I try and stay positive for her. My faith has grown, and Maria's has just taken a nosedive. She has so much anger towards God and just frustration and anger in general. Like, why her?
I tell Kevin all the time, you just don't understand what I'm feeling, and you know what, I want people to know how I feel, and I know that I can't make them feel what I feel because they're not going through what I'm going through. If I could have the ability to have them live one day in this body, they'll understand the pain. It's a pain that I can't describe. From the physical pain when I got cut in half, to take all the abscess out of the infection when I got sick, from having all these different procedures done, that physical pain, the emotional pain, the pain of not having my kids around. Just one day. I ask that question every day. When is it going to be over? When am I going to have my kids back? When am I going to be able to take this amazing trip to Italy? When am I going to make it married to Kevin? When am I going to get that big promotion at work? With this happening right now, I don't see it happening. And that's why that question always pops up. When? I want it to be over, and I know it will be over. But when is it going to be over?
I think she's very scared of dying. I think she's very scared of not being around. The other day she came to me and she pretty much begged me to do anything I could to bring her kids home for Christmas. But the way she talks is she wants them to come home for Christmas because she might not see them again.
It's very scary. It has affected us so much. We were supposed to get married, and I feel like he keeps getting put off and off and off and off. And you know what? He says, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about another date. And you know why I don't want to? Because for this year, for January, when I said June, and then the following month that happened, I'm afraid that something bad's gonna happen. I'm setting a date. He doesn't know that. I can't even put it into words. I can't. Everything has changed. I want to go back to 3 years ago. I want to go back to 3 years ago when I thought I had everything. When I had plans to marry him. When I wanted to do things with the kids. My kids are not even here. Every Christmas we were supposed to spend Christmas together. Every Thanksgiving. Seeing the kids go to school. Everything has changed. Kevin threw me this huge birthday party for my 30th birthday. He brought mariachis and everything. I'll talk about everything. He just went all out. He did whatever he could. When he proposed he took me to Vegas and proposed to me right below the Eiffel Tower, and he said, "This is the best that I could come up with." So I said, "I'll take it." And he said, "I promise you we'll go to Paris one of these days." That's one of the things that I wanted to do. Travel and get to sit right below the Eiffel Tower and drink a glass of wine.